Infantilization and the body hair debate. It's actually something that's interesting to me. I don't know exactly. I mean, like I already know like generally what the conversation's about. It's gonna probably overcomplicate the conversation about preference. Guys do prefer women without body hair and whatnot. Personally, I don't know. As I get older, I don't know. I've been changing as I get older. For some reason, body hair matters less to me. Starting to like it actually. Getting more and more attracted to stretch marks and stuff too. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe that's just part of being a grown up or something. But I've been a little bit of a goblin lately. Let me not get too into it. Okay. But let's see let's just start the video. Okay. It's playing. Oh, this video contains content that might be distressing to some viewers. Okay, cool. Cool, I can't wait.
My small breast and my little frame and my sweet little girl voice, it exudes something in people that is extremely passionate and tantalizing.
Do you think girls should shave down there? Like, does it matter to you?
Yeah. Get down, her gonna stay.
In my arms, she was always Lolita.
Is it for like health? Is it for like pivot?
Why is this so insane? This is so much. This is intense.
I don't know. Maybe it's like an ingrained thing in my brain from society. Who knows?
I swear to God, all your men fantasize about me and probably wonder what it's like to be with someone who is as small as I am.
This is a stretch. What? This is so intense. Okay. All right.
So I got a Brazilian wax recently.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, how rude, lol. Hey, how are you? My name is Shakespeare. You look lovely in that shade of color. Anyways, I got a Brazilian wax. I voluntarily drove to the nearest wax center in my area, climbed up onto that table covered in that medical baking sheet paper, and I let a stranger dive headfirst into my love portal and backdoor landing strip to remove every inch of hair for $120, no less. I think they have some sort of brainwashing thing going on because during the entirety of my wax, my specialist kept talking about the cool, innovative, exclusive products that they sell to maintain wax skin. And when I go out to the checkout area, I can just look for myself.
A little jarring. We started with such an intense intro, and now it's bizarre.
And choose whatever I want. To which I, of course, decline in my head because I'm not falling for it. I got bills, baby. Except the wax center is tiny, and all the products are on this one wall right next to the cashier. And there's other people standing around you while there is a world.
What is a Brazilian wax, by the way? What is a Brazilian wax? When it comes to waxing your pubic hair, Brazilian wax is the most extreme choice. With Brazilian, all pubic hair is stripped from the vulva. What is a vulva? Oh my god. You guys have a car down there? I'm just kidding. And your mons pubis, the pad of flesh directly above your... What the fuck? You also remove any pubic hairs that grow on your thighs, up your belly. Holy moly, that's intense. Personally, for me, all I'm going to say is that, like, you know... It's like a 2-for-1 special when a girl doesn't shave down there, because then I could floss at the same time. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with it. I'm an efficient man, okay?
Worldwide panty happening outside, so you subconsciously try to scooch over into a more private bubble, which just so happens to be against the products. And I'm telling you that your nose is practically pushed up against it through your mask, of course, and they all look so shiny and pretty and new, and like a human crow, you just have got to get one. Except I got a bag full, and I am every targeted ad creator's wet dream. The point is, I decided to never get waxed again in my life. I personally felt exposed, unlike myself, and just totally wrong. So naturally, I went ahead and booked another.
You know, honestly, like, I don't even like use a razor because I'm not putting something near that close to my members, my Planeteers, if you know what I'm saying. I'll just use like a trimmer sometimes, once a month or so. My wife, we don't care. Who cares? This is not big of a deal.
Appointment. This whole ordeal really made me think.
What is wrong with me?
Why do I put myself through shaving nicks and excruciating wax appointments when I know I hate the aftermath of it once the second or third week comes back around?
You know, it's to get a good date. No, I think that the worst. I don't think it's that big of a deal. You like women shave or have to shave. It's a bigger deal when they don't get any after they do it. You know what I mean? You hear the horror stories. Women are like, "I shaved and he didn't even fuck me." It's like I understand that, sister. You know what I mean? I can understand the distress I feel the same way after I'd shave my testicles. I'd be like, well, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'd be like, damn, she wouldn't even do it with me. You know, I don't shame her about it. It's just like I'm personally disappointed. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell, man? All that work. It's not that much work as a guy, to be honest with you. I could just have to like shower and that's it. And bring the money. That's the thing, you know? Like people are like, oh, it sucks that men have to pay. You're right, it does, you know, it sucks, but at the same time, I don't have to like look good. Me getting ready to go out somewhere, it's just me putting on a shirt and pants and showering. You know, women have to do so much. Well, I'd rather pay than have to put on 10 pounds of makeup. I mean, women are paying for the makeup. It's crazy. It's nuts. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Why do I feel like I need to be completely hairless in order to be desirable? Not only
Naked
in
mole rat,
person,
baby.
but even in the minds of others. And what is with this insistent nagging that this, like everything else, has something to do with society's growingly unattainable expectations for women? You know where this is going. About 3 weeks ago, I asked on my community tab for video topic suggestions relating to tropes and societal expectations. Esther wrote to me, this one may be a little dark, but what I've noticed is that a lot of people's perceptions of femininity are tied to very predatory ideas and Wikipedia files. I don't know. Is it just me? Well, Esther, I've got 8
See, I know where it's going to go. It's going to go with like, you know, children tend to be hairless and like very submissive and this and that. I don't know. I haven't visited this topic in a while. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like some of it's just not that deep. Wanting a girl without hair, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of why shaving became popular for women has to do with, I think, and I could be so wrong, I think it has to do with World War I, when men were at war and women were staying at home and they were making all the products, and so they weren't selling as many razors, so they made this idea that shaving, like not having shaved armpits and you know, vajungus was actually like unhealthy or it was not sanitary, and so they're just trying to like trying to push the idea to women that they need to shave their hair. I think. I could be so wrong. I remember hearing that a while ago. Sorry if that's wrong, but I don't know, you know, I don't think the beauty standard was created because of that. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. I should probably look into that. But
pages of source notes here that confirm that no, it's not just you. Childlike innocence, virginity, and a weird connection to sensuality walk into a bar. Lana Del Rey walks in right after. Sorry, if you watched my 12 going on 21 video, you know there is a long history of mainstream media pushing the image of the sexy young girl, which is quite frankly the worst 3 words that I've ever put in succession, between teen and barely legal categories on porn sites, and an emphasis on sexualizing teen characters.
let's see here. The history of women's razor marketing. 1910, armpit hair is embarrassing. With the 1901 invention of the safety razor in the U.S. Army's contract to supply every soldier with a razor, Gillette was a household name at the beginning of the 20th century, but it was only being used by men. Women's fashion was starting to transition from 19th century era button-up conservative gowns to more relaxed sleeveless dresses for dancing and going outside. Then when Gillette created the first women's razor in 1915, it took advantage of the advertising opportunity presented by more exposed skin. Below is the first ad for Gillette's Lady. Okay. Yeah, okay, so I was a little bit wrong, but it was made because they wanted to sell razors to women, and since I guess beauty standards were shifting towards showing them off more skin, they're like, oh, it's kind of embarrassing that you show people your armpit hair. Ew, yucky, poopy. It's just interesting because, like, listen, love-based capitalism, of course, but there are some flaws, and one of them is that, like, the market will create problems where there's no problems. They'll suggest to you that, hey, oh, isn't that thing that naturally goes under your armpits disgusting? You should get rid of it. And then we're like, oh, man. And then women start to do it, and then men start to like it, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a baseline standard, and now women have to put on fucking 10 pounds of makeup and shave their underarms and everything, and their buttholes. And now guys like me, like, we don't get the authentic experience, and it's so distressing. It's so interesting though, but I don't think it comes from pedophilia. I think that, like, I think it's a little disproportionate.
Characters on terribly written shows, a mark has definitely been left on our collective perception of young girls. But none are so infamous and as long-lasting as the 1955 novel Lolita. Written by Vladimir Nabokov and narrated by the terrible Humpert, the plot follows the relationship between a middle-aged man, that being Humpert, and his 12-year-old stepdaughter.
Ew. That's
Dolores, or in
disgusting.
his eyes, Lolita. Lolita is what Humbert, a Wikipedia file, calls a nymphette, a sexually attractive girl or young woman. I say no other phenomenon has had as intense of an effect on pop culture as Lolita because it quite literally shaped many themes within pop culture itself. According to Ira Wells, Nabokov's novel spawned 2 films, musical adaptations, ballets, stage adaptations, a Russian language opera, spin-off novels, bizarre fashion subcultures, and memorabilia that runs the gamut from kitschy to creepy, from heart-shaped glasses to anatomically precise blow-up dolls. With the possible exception of Gatsby, no 20th century American literary character penetrated the public consciousness quite like Lolita. In the 60 years since she first appeared, Lolita transcended her original textual instance. She became an archetype, an
Wait, what is this? Is this book about? I don't even know the context of the book. Is it about how it's like a good thing that he was attracted to his 12-year-old stepdaughter or whatever? That's so weird. Bro, that's crazy. Is that where they come from? The term for like lolicon comes from? Damn, Asian people took it too far. Okay, now you're drawing pictures of it. I'm just joking around. How does this tie into John Bork?
icon of youthful desirability. Lolita became America's sweetheart. You can find references of Lolita across Lana Del Rey's discography and allusions to her in film classics like 1999's American Beauty. Somewhere between the late 50s and now, Lolita was refashioned from a victim of terrible circumstances to a sex icon.
So it sounds like the original tone of the book was that she was a victim. Has she been refashioned as a sex icon? I've never heard that before. Is that real, or is that just... I've never heard that before. Is that actually real? It leads about him having a romance with a 12-year-old. Yeah, it was framed in a strange way. Interesting.
In Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Nabokov's novel, Lolita is over-sexualized compared to how she actually was portrayed in the novel. Quote, Nabokov repeatedly emphasizes that there is nothing conventionally beautiful about the nymphette. The novel's Lolita is a tomboyish, malodorous little urchin. Humbert comments on her monkeyish nimbleness. He duly notes every time she picks her nose or adjusts a wedgie. Kubrick, on the other hand, airbrushes this character into a 1950s pinup model. In her introductory shot, Lolita is undressed in a bikini, propped up on one arm, the posture and lighting carefully coordinated to insinuate the womanly swell of her hips.
Interesting. So, okay, because I'm getting all my information from here. It sounds like the original novel played up how not conventionally attractive this child is, and how this guy was basically like a pedophile, and he was attracted to like really childish things. And then I guess this new rendition was supposed to be more appealing to men. Oh, it's gross. Okay.
The smooth perfection of her long legs, her sultry expression as she looks up to meet our gaze. Awkwardly reminiscent of Riverdale, she's 12, but, you know, she's actually 24 years old with a mortgage kind of way.
Hi, I'm Emily. My headscarf is tied funny. I'm cold, and this video comes out tomorrow.
I wonder if that's where the idea of like, oh, but she looks such and such age, you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's old, like, that comes from? Because, like, in the movie, she's supposed to be 12, but she looks like she's an adult. That's so weird, bro. I don't know, man. Shit's like this is fucking bizarre. I don't know. We should just, if we want to get rid of a pedophile problem, just get rid of all children. You know what I mean? It's children's fault. Just kidding. This is gross.
Even though I filmed it today. And I just want to say, it turns out Sue Ellen Lyon, the girl who portrayed Lolita in Stanley Kubrick's Lolita, was actually 14 at the time of filming, not an adult like I originally thought. So there is no such thing as a womanly swell of her hips, as Ira Wells puts it in that quote from earlier. I think that the idea that the 1962 adaptation was sexualized is true, and the same goes for the 1997 version with yet another teen actress playing Lolita, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't feel comfortable describing
it. Sounds like some people are trying to force sexualization on it a little bit, and I've never seen it before, so I could be wrong, but in their interpretation of it, to possibly suggest that we have like a pedophile problem in a greater way than we actually do. Could be wrong.
With womanly adjectives because they're not women, they're children. And just to make things worse for everyone, Nabokov called Sue Ellen, a minor at the time, the perfect nymphette, which...
With that being said, I understand how framing works and how the unreliable narration provided by Humbert plays a role in how Lolita is portrayed in movie adaptations and the novel itself as a seductive sex icon, because he's a Wikipedia file. He's not going to portray Lolita as a victim because he doesn't view her that way. If he had morals, this wouldn't even be a discussion to begin with. But I do think it's worth noting that even when Nabokov made clear that Lolita was not meant to be a romantic or hot novel, people still ran with that theme anyways, and fashioned an entire movement excitement after it. That, besties, is the point of contention, not really the original novel or Nabokov himself. The blurring of childhood and promiscuous adulthood portrayed within the Lolita archetype is heavily related to the media's portrayal of young women in general, and celebrity young women especially. Britney Spears was 17 years old when she graced the cover of Rolling Stone, holding...
Well, not even just that. Like, I remember watching like the whole Britney Spears story because, you know, she had her mental breakdown. Everybody was the conservatorship and everything was going crazy. So I remember watching a documentary, and I think when she was like, it could have been 14 or 16, I don't remember exactly, they were talking about how sexy she was on television to her face. Like, there definitely is a problem. There's definitely a boundary problem, okay, with that kind of shit going on. So I guess there's definitely an issue with like it being normalized for young men to be like attracted to or excuse me, men to be attracted to young women. In some capacity, like the fact that that's acceptable to say to like a fucking child was nuts back then, and that wasn't even that long ago. Was Britney Spears like 40 or 50? It's fucking crazy.
Holding a Teletubby teddy bear and pink cord telephone. These childlike, or perhaps more tween-like, accessories were strangely paired with Britney's shirt wide open.
And then when she broke up, or her and Justin Timberlake broke up, they were calling her like a cheater and like a shitty person for like no reason. Just it was fucking weird.
And black bra showing. The writer of her article, Stephen Daly, begins with this drabble. Britney Spears extends a honeyed thigh across the length of the sofa, keeping one foot on the floor as she does so. Her blonde, streaked hair is piled high, exposing 2 little diamond earrings on each earlobe. Her face is fully made up, down to carefully applied lip liner. The baby fat logo of Spears' pink t-shirt is distended by her ample chest, and her silky white shorts with dark blue piping cling snugly to her hips. She cocks her head and smiles receptively. But hold on, it's not like that. Anyway. Alicia Silverstone was 19 when her Rolling Stone profile came out, and that too featured a lot of childlike wonder and a weird edge of promiscuity. Rich Cohen opens the article by stating, Alicia Silverstone is a kittenish 18-year-old movie star whom lots of men want to sleep with. Off to the roughest start imaginable. When Alicia shows the writer a picture of her 6-year-old self in a bikini, Cohen states that it, quote, brings to mind underground rings and police sting operations.
Ew, the fuck?
The pictures Rolling Stone uses for her profile are more of the same as Britney's. A strange dependence on stereotypical childish things like stuffed plushies and images of her hair pulled back into ribbons as she blows a giant bubblegum bubble, or her in lace bloomers, legs splayed open while she holds a teddy bear. As Tavisha
Society's fucking based, huh, guys? It's just so fucking weird.
Dude puts it. The portrayal of women.
That's true. Like Lolita is, I guess it is some kind of a porn genre. Well, it's not really porn, is it? It's illegal child pornography. Yeah, I guess maybe it has had a lot more of an impact than I want to admit because that's just disgusting. It's fucking nasty. Jesus, man. Jesus Christ.
Mainstream media has also exacerbated and contributed to this infantilization of women. Since the 1970s, there has been a steady increase in women and femininity being tied inextricably to fragility and infantility. In magazines, women are often depicted in poses and or clothing that reaffirm the stereotypic beliefs of women being vulnerable.
Well, I guess we can't really deny it, right? Like the manosphere's entire ideology centralizes around finding like freshly legal young girls that are hairless, that are completely submissive, that don't stand up for themselves, basically like attributes that would be part of a child's attributes. And nobody's really talking enough about how like a real man will want to be with a woman that knows how to stand up for themselves. So I guess, yeah. I guess that it is invading in some capacity. Like, luckily we're rejecting that ideology, but yeah.
Weak and childlike, end quote. But there are many ways in which infantilization is manifested, even amongst commoners like you and I. The infantilization shown in these pictures and profiles of Hollywood's young stars can also be weaponized against older everyday women outside of celebrityship. Chelsea R. Hewitt, author of Language as a Social Reality, The Effects of the Infantilization of Women, explains that gender roles are placed on people as early as infancy, with newborn girls receiving gifts that emphasize their proclivity for shopping, fashion, and the color pink, and their insistence on taking too long in the bathroom.
Women do be like in shopping,
getting ready, like older women are accused of.
Well, listen, not for nothing, but like these things do happen, okay? Women do like shopping. Women take too long in the bathroom. These are true. Now, we don't know. Part of the reason could be, well, I mean, the reason that takes so long in the bathrooms, you got to take your pants down, you got to sit down, you got to piss, you wipe your vagina. Guys just got to stand there, take a piss, and, we should probably start wiping our penis holes, guys. But guys would take longer if they started cleaning the toilet seat after they pee, because let's be real. I don't pee on the toilet seat, but it splashes up. It gets everywhere. It's crazy. But yeah, as far as the shopping, that might be something that's more socially conditioned. I don't really know. But I feel like women probably just, maybe I feel like women just like shopping. My wife loves shopping. I don't know if, maybe they really do. I don't know. I imagine the stereotype comes from somewhere, but...
Newborn boys, on the other hand, are perceived as just one of the guys. All of his memorabilia is painted with...
Newborn boys are considered like obnoxious as fuck, or young boys are considered obnoxious and like difficult to fucking deal with, because they're just like, they're just fucking always like, it's too much energy, obnoxious. It's probably one of the reasons why we like overdiagnosed ADHD in people. Especially young boys who just don't get it out of their system. I'm diagnosed with ADHD. I probably do have it. I'm just saying, I feel like, boys are a little different. They're usually a little more rambunctious. They're a little crazier, a little more, just different things you got to deal with. I'm just saying, it's fucking shit going on.
Tough animals like bears.
But yeah, she's gonna be a heartbreaker when she's older. Yeah, that's part of it. And then like a young boy's like, oh, he's gonna be. Well, they'll say like he's gonna be a heartbreaker too. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Lions. He loves the color blue and doesn't care too much about his appearance because he's a guy, and obviously men don't care about hygiene. These gender roles lead to a gendered society where things are split down the middle and handed off either to the feminine side or the masculine side. Feminine people are seen as submissive, receptive, loving, caring, and etc. And masculine people are seen as aggressive, out of tune with their emotions, strong, and perfect for leadership roles.
Yeah, some of that is true. Like, if you do we're people. We like to categorize things. So, like, there is like a masculinity and femininity do exist. There are, and that's obviously it's a socially constructed concept, but identifying like traits that are generally identified with like or align more with women versus men. Like, women are more empathetic and caretaking. Men are usually like stronger, and angrier. More logical, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because we're people. People aren't purely logical. They're logic and emotion. And there's pros and cons. And that's my thing when we talk about feminism. One of the things we need to do is we need to promote femininity more and value it more, even in men. Your ability as a man to be more empathetic, to be more loving. The bar is higher now, especially for dads, because back in the day, you made money, you came home, and you're done. Now, women bring a lot to the table. Not only do they take care of the house and home, but they're also expected to work as well, because, can't really survive most of the time on a one-income household. If you can, God bless you. So now men have to come to the table more with a little bit more femininity, more empathy, which is a good thing. We should come to the table more. You need to be a little bit more of an active father. You need to be a little bit more present. It's a little harder. That's just the way it is now. And then again, there's nothing wrong with that expectation to put on men. But yeah, there is a little bit of a difference. Like, I'd say like one of the biggest issues, especially when it comes to sexual dynamics with men and women, is that men lack emotional intelligence, and women can sometimes lack being direct, and it can make a lot of problems when it comes to sexual dynamics. And if we had a better conversation about this, you'd probably see less sexual violations. I'm not putting that on women, or I'm not saying that it's all a woman's fault. All I'm saying is that like these are very these can be a little difficult dynamics, and we should have the education of telling young men to create spaces for women to be comfortable with saying yes, no, whatever they want to say. And then, of course, teach women to make sure that they assert their boundaries, because if you don't assert a boundary, then, how can somebody, it's hard to claim that somebody violated a boundary you haven't asserted, So, it's a complex conversation, probably not best to have here, or we've had it like every day, so. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, there is a little bit of a difference.
The ideal of womanhood, then, is to be submissive, docile, nurturing, and small, while the ideal of manhood is to be John Cena, I guess. This gendered society with all of its gendered rules.
You can't even see John Cena. What are you talking about? Have you ever watched wrestling before? Women, right?
Creates a power dynamic between feminine and masculine people, especially with language. Tavisha Sood correlates women in positions of power being called girls, missy, or young lady by men in the workplace with a man's attempt to diminish, belittle, or infantilize her in order to be perceived as the more dominant person. His comment, made to subvert any claim of authority she had, also branded the congresswoman as someone who doesn't deserve her position. Painted as a whiny child, this comment now has the domino effect of society perceiving her dominance for arrogance and her demand for accountability as a tantrum. This subtle misreading of her actions is how society starts to paint every ambitious woman as bitchy, letting women know that unless they are docile or childlike,
They aren't the ideal mold of a feminine woman.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I mean, I know my mom grew up in grew up. My mom was like a managerial woman. You know, she did very well in her job. She did, and this was an issue that she dealt with more. I don't see it as much today. Maybe that's just because I'm not a fucking dickheaded man, but where people wouldn't just not respect her sometimes because she was a woman, and she would have to, you have to additionally assert your boundaries sometimes disproportionately more than a woman or a man would have to. That stuff does definitely exist, absolutely. It's very interesting, but I feel like hopefully that's not as much of an issue nowadays. I think that's like diminishing as an issue. I never disrespected my bosses that were women or anything, and I always listened to what they had to say equally to them. I never was like, oh, this woman's saying this, let me go ask such and such. No, I never do that. It was ridiculous. My boss said whatever. So hopefully this is changing. I like to think so, but there's still always problems.
End quote. And yes, infantilization even crops up in popular culture and gender expectations surrounding the infamous V-card phenomenon. The concept of virginity has long terrorized our culture. According to Wikipedia, the most dependable source on earth, the V-card is oftentimes tied to cultural and religious traditions that place special value and significance on this state, predominantly towards unmarried females, associated with notions of personal purity, honor, and worth, end quote. In the media and in real life too, but for the purpose of this video, the media, men who do not have sex are depicted as losers, undesirable, awkward, and just Steve Carell, I guess. Women who do not have sex are depicted as pure or prude and oftentimes respectable. Madeline Holden, author of Do Men Prefer Virgins, says on the matter, hence we have a gendered and heteronormative conception.
Yeah, sure, true. I understand like the talking points too. People will be like, well, men like to have sex. This is where it comes from. They'll say like, well, men like to have sex for more and women like don't. And historically the value in women has been exclusively like sex and their ability to clean, I guess. And so that's kind of logic. But when you look at the data, a man or a woman that's had more sex generally has like a harder time finding happiness in a relationship. So like it really, I think high body counts are kind of gross in general, but I'll kind of have a high one. But more than that, I'll say the only time I really cared about wanting a virgin was when my wife was fucking, I couldn't throw a pipe, you know what I mean? And then after that, like, why would you, like, once you know how to satisfy a woman, why would you want to sleep with a virgin? Like, because then they're not going to satisfy you. I'm not trying to be rude. But yeah, I feel like people shouldn't care. If you do care about body count, like, whatever, God bless you, I don't care. But I just don't really get it that much. I mean, it's, why do you want to have bad sex?
Of virginity. It's embarrassing for men to be virgins and they should try to have sex as soon as possible. But virginity is a prize for women, and the longer a girl keeps her chaste state, the more admirable she is. This is where the male...
just so you guys know, if you make it to 40 years old without having sex, you turn into a wizard. So, okay, so it's a prize for men too. All right, they'll make fun of you until you start using those superpowers and fucking shit up. I'm just saying. All right, you saw a 40-year-old virgin. That guy's a movie star. Became a wizard because he was a virgin. It's crazy. Think about it like that. Okay.
Fantasy element supposedly comes into play. Because virgins are rare and precious, they're seen as the ultimate sexual conquest for some men. End quote. There's even a fascination for brides who are expected to be virginal, with the whole white representing innocence and waiting till marriage thing. Dr. Mark Griffiths, in his article titled Virgin Fascination, states, bride fascination is sometimes known as V-card fascination, where the ideal woman is pure and uninitiated, making her a safe partner in many ways. The bridal fascination extends to the image of an innocent appearing V-card having bride being your own total floozy. I'm trying really hard not to get demonetized here. Willing and anxious to do anything to please you.
Well, that intro was pretty crazy, so. Papa, I don't think sex experience matters if you're with somebody you love. Well, if you love virgins, it might be a little weird, okay?
End quote. So the V-card often correlates to innocence. That's usually the driving point behind its allure. Some men, a part of Madeline Holden's study on the V-card, even said that they don't actively seek virgins because it feels morally wrong, as people who have their V-card are usually, but not always, are young girls. You see what I'm getting at here. I was delirious by this point, entirely drunk off the idea that yet again, I have made an intellectual connection. So I googled, what are some childlike qualities, and clicked on the first link I saw because that's the intellectual thing to do. Thisadultlife.org cites 10 things as being childlike qualities. Being curious, wanting to explore, having an imagination, accepting others, having a sense of innocence, giving generously, being content, freely expressing love.
Like, most of those things wouldn't be associated with any kind of pedophilia. Like, I mean, okay. I guess most people who don't possess, like, hold on, wanting to explore? Okay. Where are we going with this? Because being curious, wanting to explore, Okay, let me just keep going.
Getting up after a fall, and being believers. I also searched up what it means to be a feminine woman. Lisa Hart has a video on how to become a siren to seduce and hypnotize a high caliber man. What is he, a gun? Which features advice that states to angle your head down and look up, which makes men feel powerful and in need of protecting you. Lisa says it's a submissive way of looking and that it's innocent. She also says a higher pitched voice is feminine, but then again, she says the same thing about a lower voice. This isn't me picking on Lisa, by the way, because I've got to say, I think she changed my life. With the hip swaying walk tutorial, I've never felt more powerful. There's also this 2020 mindful graphic that boasts 10 tips on how to be more feminine and sexy, including taking care of your hygiene, dressing attractively, acting confident, smiling more often, being receptive, which is the same word used to describe Britney from that Rolling Stone article from earlier, being well-groomed, speaking softly, developing a right attitude.
See, there's the pedophilia, being well-groomed. Trying to groom children. I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it. Case closed, guys.
Being educated and being an achiever. And of course, the traits I mentioned earlier of women being perceived as loving, free.
Being educated? Oh, is that really more sexy? I mean, I like an educated woman, but I figure I don't like all these fucking weirdos just like a woman that's just like sits there and fucking does the dishes.
Flowing in their emotions, nurturing, submissive, and etc. I thought it will be interesting to compare these two sets of traits and see how many we have that are similar to each other. Receptive from the feminine side and accepting from the childlike side.
But I would say what
are two sides of the same coin to me.
It seems like this trait is trying to tie femininity to childlike, and trying to suggest that like some men that like these attributes are pedophiles. My thing is though that like be accepting is good for everybody. Everybody should be more accepting. That if that's a feminine quality, or I don't know, that's a quality we should all have. Usually, people lose the accepting because they get wronged by somebody in life, and you should try not to lose that.
Innocence, obviously, being loving and free in expressions are found in both.
Yeah, but like men should be loving and free and emotional too, just in a different way. Obviously, like maybe not. Well, you don't have to be
of the same coin,
but be freely accepting love. Like men should do that too. Flowing emotion. Like I just I don't know. Some of this is a little weird
to me. Innocence, obviously, being loving and free in expressions are found in both. And I would argue that in some cases, children are expected to be submissive in the adult/child power dynamic.
Well, sure, but I think you're reaching now. But also, I don't think I don't know. I don't really like submissive women. I don't really like. I like a woman who will listen to me and be attentive. But I don't know. I don't want somebody who just submits to me. I need pushback, or else I'm gonna be a fucking goblin. My wife gives me plenty of pushback. She makes me feel like a man. I think it's good for a woman to make a man feel like they're in charge. That's a positive thing. And obviously a man should respect women, but at the end of the day, like if I had a woman that didn't give me any pushback, I would not be with that woman because I would just roll over them. Like that's the reality. I have a very strong personality and presence. And so damn, I'm getting my fucking shit pushed. Holy fuck. Yeah. Sorry. Fuck.
So we can tally that up as well. A lot of the articles I read that aimed to teach me femininity all emphasized a vague importance on hygiene and grooming. While most of them don't bite the bullet, or the blade, so to speak, one article was brave enough to explain what they mean by hygiene and grooming. And that is the dreaded body hair debate. Oh, that's another similarity on the list.
Male gaze.
This is a topic so lush and a bit hairy, pun not intended, that it deserves its own section. Body hair is a topic reserved for hushed discussions between gals, as we chat and sometimes lie about what we do and do not get rid of. Heather Widdows, professor of global ethics at the University of Birmingham and author of Body Hair is Natural, Society Thinking Otherwise is Dangerous, says that keeping your body hair is seen as a political statement for women, to the point where celebrities who decide to keep it, or in Julia Roberts' case, simply forget to shave, become entangled in the news cycle for an eternity. They're forever reminded of their hairy faux pas and branded unladylike.
Well, is it the news cycle or is it like the vanity news cycle? Because it seems like a lot of that's run by women. Like, I'm not saying women created the standard, but it seems like, I don't know. Maybe this is, I don't know. I feel like, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, but I feel it's like women are more aggressive towards, women who don't follow the status quo than men. I could be wrong. That doesn't mean that like the patriarchy didn't create it, although it sounds like capitalism created this problem. But that's just, I guess, my experience. My thing is that if we're going to talk about body hair, and it's like, okay, we want a woman who's clean shaven. I will say part of that standard is for men too. Like women like a guy who usually shaves his, Peter Pumpkin Eater here, his little pickle hole. So I think that that's generally shared. And so, yeah, I mean, not their armpits, and I get that. But then what about women who like a man that's clean shaven? Are they also pedophiles? I'm just saying, like, how far does this go? Yeah, I'm just saying, are we going to call women pedophiles too for that? You know? I don't know.
Like until the end of time. It is the hairy body that stands out, says Widows, which is deemed abnormal and unnatural, even though hair grows on our bodies every moment of our lives. End quote. Oh, what was that? Oh. I've just been informed that Veet has entered the chat. In 2014, the hair removal brand Veet were in a silly, goofy mood. They released a commercial featuring a woman hailing a taxi cab with her arm up for obvious reasons until she realizes the cab driver is looking at her funny from the other side of the windshield. She looks down in confusion and realizes her armpits are hairy. The camera pans up, and we see that the woman has transformed into an even hairier man. She curses and says, "I shaved yesterday," to which the cab driver drives off without picking her up because...
And then also... men usually grow more body hair than women too, right? Right? I mean, I believe so. You know, usually a hairy woman isn't even as hairy as a man. Okay. And then Italians have very hairy legs. I don't know. My Italian friend has. I don't know. I don't know why I brought it up. Let's move on.
Sure. This commercial wasn't the only one that Veet produced about its weird body hair standards, and certainly wasn't the only one that faced immense backlash because of it.
What's up, homie? Love the content, but you are wrong about the racial makeup of the black manosphere. What do you mean? I've just said that it seems like the manosphere is disproportionately black. How am I wrong about the racial makeup of the black manosphere, though? I'm a little curious about what you're talking about, but okay.
In fact, Veet released a number of commercials all with the same don't risk dudeness theme, where various women try to keep others from realizing their body hair has grown back. And the ending is just them being likened to men. In one particularly interesting commercial, the camera zooms into a sunlit room where we see a man sleeping in bed. A hairy leg comes up from behind him and drapes across his hip, and all seems fine until he touches it, realizes it's hairy, and a man pops up from behind him saying, "I shaved yesterday." The implication here is that women have to get rid of their body hair, of course using Veet because, you know, it's their commercial, capitalism, you know, or else those women risk being confused with men. Heather Widow states, as the hairless body becomes the only acceptable body, a dramatic shift happens. Defluffing stops being a beauty practice and becomes redefined as a hygiene practice, as part of so-called routine maintenance. Hair removal becomes something we have to do, a requirement. It is not an option to refuse. It's like teeth cleaning, but without any of the health benefits.
10 out of 10. Yup. She ate that up.
People make a big deal about hair being unsanitary or unhygienic when it serves the same purpose as eyelashes and nose hairs, and you don't see people telling you to wax those. Well, not the eyelashes, at least. Harley Vandergreeten wrote in...
I mean, women wax their eyelashes all the time. No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of eyebrows, my bad. Silly goose.
An article for Healthline titled, "What's the Purpose of Public Hair Monetization?" You know the drill. Which states, public hair serves a protective function by trapping pathogens that could otherwise enter your body. Removing public hair may therefore make a person more susceptible to common infections, such as UTIs, yeast infections, and STIs. Hair removal can also irritate your skin, leading to skin infections such as cellulitis and folliculitis. So cool. But if public hair is so important to the safety and protection of our most vulnerable region, why do we put such an emphasis on ripping and clipping and snipping and other synonyms?
The large majority of it is white. They are just not as visible. The new flashy content of Fresh and Fitter is a few others. I mean, maybe you're right. I'm pretty sure you're not, though. The most prominent people in the manosphere seem to be black. There's a disproportionate amount of black people in the manosphere. I don't exactly know why. I've heard a lot of black women talk about how they get like disproportionately disrespected by black men. I've heard a lot of young LGBTQ black youth talk about how they get disproportionate amounts of homophobia. I don't think it's an inherent black quality. If we really wanted to sit here and have a conversation about it, maybe it has to do with the fact that we very heavily regulate white people on the internet, which is a good thing. We hold them to the standard of like, don't be sexist, racist, this, that, and the other thing. But white liberals are afraid of black people. I think this is what I was saying, in that we don't really criticize bad black content creators sometimes as much as we should. I could be wrong about that, but manosphere, disproportionate. It also talks about proportionality of individuals, not just the number, right? So yeah, I don't think that I'm incorrect, and you just saying that you're wrong doesn't really say much to me. I think like one white person in the manosphere. You know, again, this isn't like a criticism on black people. It's probably a very complicated conversation. You know, black people tend to be a lot more conservative, a little bit less liberal. I know, like, mainstream makes it seem like, oh, black people are super liberal, but a lot of black people are very religious, and so maybe some of it comes from that as well, because religion can have some negative impacts. I love God, but organized religion can be pretty abysmal dog shit. Can you show me some, like, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of white people in the manosphere actively preaching things. You know, maybe so if you want to show me something, sure, maybe I'm wrong or ignorant, but I'm not pushing this like idea that black people are inherently bad. Yeah, just kind of throwing this out there. Okay.
Ending in ing, especially when other countries outside of the Western world don't put as much emphasis on body hair removal as we do. Even in the ye old lute days, Catholic women were expected to grow out their hair as a display of femininity. It was kind of like that picture of those men riding their beards like bicycles, but the hair just comes from under the robe instead.
This joke was historically inaccurate.
Who said that? You're not going to believe this, but it's not hard to figure out why removing body hair became so important for women. You could even say the selection came naturally. Mariana Serini states that the culprit behind body hair hysteria is the one and only Charles Darwin, coiner of natural selection and other scientific things I didn't pay attention to in middle school. He associated a lack of body hair with being more evolved and sexually attractive, and associated not shaving with primitive ancestry and an atavistic return to earlier, less developed forms. For no reason at all, I will now be showing you a picture of Charles' body hair is primitive Darwin, with no ulterior motive. Hey, that's a sick beard. Darwin's views on body hair caught on quickly. 19th century medical and scientific experts began associating body hair with sexual inversion, disease, pathology, lunacy, and criminal violence. But just for women though, just girly things, you know? Serini states that by the early 1900s, upper and middle class white America increasingly saw smooth skin as a marker of femininity and female body hair as disgusting, with its removal offering a way to separate oneself from cruder people.
I mean, I guess, I was going to say, it makes sense. Men typically the ones that were supposed to or expected to work back then. Women weren't like allowed to work, so seeing somebody as smoother would make sense for it to be like a woman because you wouldn't have calluses. I think there even went as far as to say, like, back in the day, women who were pale were considered, or people in pale in general were considered of higher value, or of, you know, because they meant that they weren't outside working all the time, and, you know, a common working person was like bad for some reason, you know, because, you know, people who keep your entire infrastructure going are terrible people, obviously. Yeah. I just don't know if it comes from pedophilia.
Lower class, and immigrants. By 1964, 98% of American women aged 15 to 44 were regularly shaving their legs, end quote. But don't get too ahead of yourself, because removing body hair back then was nowhere near as extreme as it is today. Serini goes on to say, in the late 1960s and 1970s, full bushes were not at all uncommon, even in Playboy. Around that time, you also had the second wave of feminism and the spread of hippie culture, both of which rejected hairless bodies. For a lot of women, body hair was a symbol of their fight for equality. It wasn't seen as unnatural. Not yet. No, it didn't become totally taboo until a shift occurred in pop culture, porn videos, and when new techniques like waxing became popular. After that, hairless bodies became synonymous with femininity, leading to such commercials like Veet, which compares hairy women to men. I expounded all of that to get to this next sentence, that it's kind of weird how we equate hairlessness, especially in the public area, as hot and desirable, especially when the whole—
Well, it is true though. Let me show you. This is the hottest thing I've ever seen. Check this out. The sexiest thing on TV I've ever seen is this. This is when beauty standards really started to shift. I think it's Rupert, the naked mole rat from Kim Possible. Once I saw this, I was like, damn, I need that in my life. Okay, I need it.
reason that hair is there in the first place is because we went through puberty and are one step closer to not being children anymore. I think that's what hair signifies for me, in my opinion. Hair is an indicator that I'm a grown woman. I think all of this makes me realize that society has too long of a track record of relating women to young girls and wanting them to look and behave too much like children for my moral liking. And let me just step in and say that it doesn't automatically make you a—
I just don't think it comes from like children necessarily. I think it just comes from sexism. Like women are supposed to basically exist or women are weaker and this is the the historical idea. I don't believe this, but women are weaker and they need to be protected. And since they do that, the men go out and they protect, and the women need to stay home and basically take care of everything else because women can't possibly provide. They're not intelligent enough, blah, 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 blah. And then we've kind of created this classification. I don't think that everything is infantilizing women, or at least not trying to compare women to children. I think that there definitely is aspects of like thinking that they're incapable, but I just think that this is a sexist ideology more than it is like a pedophilic one. There are definitely like people, especially disgusting men, who think that children are attractive or want to see more childlike qualities for sure. I just don't know if it's directly linked to pedophilia in like this, in that way, as much as maybe it's just comes from that historical standard.
Wikipedia file because you like not having body hair, or
I was Rufus.
prefer
I
other
thought it was
people not
Rupert.
having body hair. That's your prerogative. The problem comes when you begin policing other people and even yourself. When you say you're not feminine because you don't shave or wax, or when you say other people have to be hairless or they're not.
Well, I don't think it's bad. Like I would say that like hair is probably more of a masculine trait by our standards, at least. You know, you don't have to forcefully adhere to that. But we'll say, okay, that it doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily bad. Like that's one of the bigger problems is the way that we look at masculinity and femininity, as if like if a man has a feminine trait that they're bad, or a woman has a masculine trait that they're somehow bad. Like that's a bigger issue, I would say. I don't think it necessarily matters what the classification of this particular trait is.
Not woman enough, so I'm going to make them wax and make them shave.
Just mind your business.
Anyways, let's get back on track. Between salivating over teen celebrities, the nymphette aesthetic, and Lolita obsession, to the similarities between childlike traits and stereotypical feminine traits, it seems like society has a perverse relationship with women, almost fashioning them after children for whatever reason. And the idea that some people prefer hairless, innocent, V-card having
bodies
does nothing to help this conclusion. That is what I was going to end the video with, but that's when I found out about
tangents.
I do think it's an interesting theory that the Western world is infected with a sick case of the Wikipedia file disease, but it could also have something to do with our heteronormative male.
Do you think it's just the Western world? Like there definitely is problems with pedophilia. I'm not saying there isn't, but I mean, Western countries tend to have higher ages of consent. I don't know that you can necessarily. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's fair to say that Western countries have a problem with pedophilia when like a lot of non-Western countries have an age of consent of like 13, and when Western countries are usually like bare minimum 16, and they should be higher, by the way. I think if anything, it's more that Western people in the Western countries call it out more, especially women who have the ability to speak out and have equal footing. I don't think that this is a Western problem though. It's a little weird, but okay.
Case of the Wikipedia
tangents.
I do think it's an interesting theory that the Western world is infected with a sick case of the Wikipedia file disease.
I don't think that there's a Western problem at all. It's weird.
But it could also have something to do with our heteronormative, male gaze pandering society. Because duh. And for clarification, just because I say the term male gaze doesn't mean women aren't incapable of internalizing and upholding heterosexist ideals too, which we will see later. The idea that women who do not adhere to stereotypical gender roles like shaving, submission, and etc. was also a popular retort for anti-feminists, who viewed feminism as an ugly, aggressive woman thing or a womanless thing entirely back during the first couple of waves. According to Brianne Foss, a university professor and author of Dreaded Otherness, Heteronormative Patrolling in Women's Body Hair Rebellion, the fear of being perceived as the dreaded other, in particular hairy, manly, angry, and lesbian, has long been the basis of women's shunning of the feminist movement. We have essentially likened feminism as the antithesis of ideal womanhood, which we can definitely see with previous revolutions and popular iconography of ideal women in the past. The unideal woman, the feminist, is vulgar, manly, hairy, and a lesbian, which just won't do in our society because how will men be satisfied by that? Feminists have historically been defeminized because of their...
Hey, listen, as a man, I get satisfied to lesbians sometimes. I go on the old hub. I don't know. I don't even know why I do this to myself. Hey guys, now we have another problem, okay? And that is the normalization of sexualizing lesbians in our society versus actively shaming gay men. Because it is true. You know, when you're growing up, when it comes to a lesbian, like nobody really polices women on like this stuff. You know, you're not supposed to be gay, but gay men, like they actively say like you shouldn't be fucking around boys and shit. It's interesting. Don't experiment. Don't do this. You know what I mean? I just wanted to suck my friend's dick when I was just a young kid. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying that It is part of our society as well. Okay.
perceived bitchiness, desire for more.
And frankly, I'm sorry for going on a tangent. I think it comes down to, like, I think, and I could be wrong, this is just something I've been kind of mulling over in my head. Okay. I think that sometimes guys, maybe, they act based on how horny something makes them. Okay. And that's why guys are more okay with lesbians and not gay guys, because gay guys don't make people horny. Me personally, I love gay men and they love me. But I look at a guy doing stuff and sometimes I'm like, oh, that's not for me. You know? So that's probably a similar feeling that homophobic people are having, except they think that they should legislate that ability to do those things away. So it's just a theory. It's just something I'm thinking about, what I'm working on in my old noodle.
Terms of rights.
Okay.
The ideal woman, on the other hand, is hairless, feminine, polite, and a purveyor of male dominance. But why is that? Why does hairlessness equal femininity? According to Foss,
I really think that, like, fundamentally it just started because women tend to be less hairy than men, and then maybe we just kind of took it too far of, like, the ideal man, ideal woman. Like, in a similar way, like, the ideal man is somebody who's, like, super muscular and strong and will make a bunch of money and they're tall, and we do have it does go both ways. In different ways. I'm just like, you know, men just usually don't complain about it as much. Maybe that's because we don't create enough comfort for men to be complaining about it. I don't really know. But I feel like, you know, these conversations always centralize around like, oh, like, I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't think it's that deep always. Okay?
notes masculine qualities. Remember when I went on and on about gender roles? Yeah, hairiness fits in there too. Hair has historically, at least in some context, represented power. So women's routine hair removal symbolizes their lack of such power. Maybe that's why women who are perceived as aggressive and domineering are also painted as hairy and manly, because those are male traits to have. So they say. From there, women internalize ideas about their bodies as central to proper femininity and become other-directed, concerned about the male gaze and oriented toward the heterosexual dating market. Women learn to dislike or deny their bodies, hide their menstruation. Women of color often adopt—
You know what I really think? I think that this like conversation around like hairlessness and like pedophilia and stuff from women, I think what's really happening is it's all women with PCOS who are tired of having to shave because they have a medical condition. And they're just trying to make it seem like it's pedophilia to shame us for not wanting to deal with date hair. They want to shame us at the dating. I'm so sorry. That was a joke. I'm just kidding. I love my queens with PCOS. Okay, I do. I truly do. Okay, I really do. It's a little bit of a joke. It was a little mean. I'm sorry.
Adopt hair straightening and skin lightening procedures. Poor minority women are often encouraged to pass as heterosexual to escape workplace discrimination, violence, and negative judgments. Women disguise and conceal—
I just want to read what that says again. Women of color often adopt hair straightening and skin lightening procedures, and sexual minority. Well, that makes sense because like Western beauty standards can be very aggressive, and sexual minority women are often encouraged to pass as heterosexual. What does that mean? What is sexual minority? Are you saying that gay women are encouraged to pass as heterosexual? Sure, that's true too. The language is just weird. I think that they mean when they say and sexual minority women, I think that means like lesbians. To escape workplace. Okay, sure. The language was a little bizarre to me. Sorry.
Heterosexual to escape workplace discrimination, violence, and negative judgments. Women disguise and conceal their natural bodies and undergo a vast array of bodily modifications, procedures, grooming habits, and maintenance behaviors to conform to social norms. Okay. Embedded within such behaviors is the insistence on the social maintenance of heterosexuality, particularly appearing heterosexual, and its accompanying body practices. Foss, who I mentioned being a
I think though, really quick, the good thing is that this is going away, right? Like the existence of, you know, there's people that they dress crazy. Listen, I'm an old guy now, so I can say it. People dress fucking weird and crazy now. All the short hair, all this different color hair, and you know, all the body piercings and the tattoos and everything. And listen, some of it's a little weird to me. Some of it I don't understand. But God bless. Do your thing. I think that these things are changing. I'm just saying, like when we have these conversations, sometimes I feel like we don't talk about the progress we've made. You know? Oh, sorry. They could have been bisexual women too. My bad. Sorry. They go into any Starbucks. It's only bisexual women or non-binary people.
University professor wanted to see this theory play out in real life, so they assigned an extra credit opportunity assignment
and also punishing people trying to organize unions. Okay,
for their class, and anyone who wanted to participate would let their body hair grow out and write a paper about their experience. The results let's just say, are a terrible concoction of transphobia, homophobia, and all-around human extinction level bigotry. These are their stories. Bisexual and lesbian women who grew out their body hair confronted issues of sexual identity, disclosure, and
bisexual and lesbian women who grew out their body hair. Wait, why is it just bisexual? Why isn't it like straight women as well? Confront the issues of sexual identity, disclosure, and direct homophobia and heterosexism, often promoting them to feel outed in public. The only reason I think it's interesting is because they're bisexual and lesbian, which means that they might have like, this doesn't seem as much like a body hair issue as it seems like a homophobia issue, because it just suggests that straight women didn't have this problem, where straight women not part of this
bisexual human extinction level will conclude about their experience. The result is theory play out in real life. Body practices. Foss, who I mentioned being a university professor, wanted to see this theory play out in real life, so they assigned an extra credit opportunity assignment for their class, and anyone who wanted to participate would let their body hair grow out and write a paper about their experience. The results, let's just say, are a terrible concoction of transphobia, homophobia, and all-around human extinction level bigotry. These are their stories. Bisexual.
But why weren't any straight women part of it? Were there no straight women part of this? Did the straight women not face any issues? Because if anything, you know, I'm not saying there's not a problem. What I'm saying is it sounds more like a homophobia problem more than it sounds like a body hair issue of like people seeing, I don't know, I guess maybe lesbian and gay bisexual women dress differently. I don't know. I just don't understand why straight women are excluded. Did no straight women want to? I just don't understand. I don't know. This is the factor here I'm not getting. I'm just
lesbian
confused.
Women who grew out their body hair confronted issues of sexual identity, disclosure, and direct homophobia and heterosexism, often prompting them to feel outed in public, less in control of identity disclosure, and fearful about others' negative responses. A student named Valeria said, "Since I am an open lesbian to my friends and family, I think not shaving would give people another reason to look at me weird. My mom would freak out if I stopped shaving because she already thinks that I want to be a guy."
Well, this is her just speculating on them not shaving and not really. And again, it's a homophobia directed thing, not a hair thing. Okay.
She doesn't realize that being a lesbian and liking other women doesn't mean that I want to be a man. A bisexual student named Mona states, "I have never been a girly girl by any means, and one of my mom's main hangups has always been that I never really conformed to traditional female roles. About a year ago, my mom found out that I am bisexual. This made her even more sensitive about my gender identity. Upon taking the study, many women that were participating made the remark that someone asked if they were turning into lesbians. I guess since my mom cannot be worried about me being a lesbian, she just jumped to the next step and asked me if this assignment was really just an excuse because I wanted to get a sex change." A student who chose not to shave before the assignment was even given reflected on their own experience with keeping their body hair. "A group of the more popular girls followed me home after school, calling me a lesphobic slur because I hadn't started shaving my legs yet like all the other girls in my grade. I cried and asked my mom that night to show me how to shave." Beth states her brother associates body hair with lesbian identity and not getting a man. He said that any woman with body hair certainly couldn't get a man, so I'd have to start dating women if I ever wanted to have sex. Here, getting a man represents the assigned goals of women's body practices. Rather than indicators directed at women themselves, comfort, confidence, and so on, attractiveness by men.
Who wants to have sex with men anyway? I feel like that's a mental disorder, right? I'm not talking about gay guys. I'm talking about straight women. I mean, I don't know why you'd be attracted to this. What's wrong with you? Grow up, am I right? See it. Get help. Attracted to men? Get help. What are you doing? BetterHelp.com.
Male standards stand as most important. And finally, Evelyn states, "I keep worrying that it's not just fun and games having body hair. Maybe some guy at a bar will see my armpit hair and think I'm a lesbian, and he'll round up a group of guys and attack me. I've heard about it."
True. Or that could happen. Or maybe he just won't hit on you. And so, you know, maybe it's a positive thing. Maybe you should grow out your armpit hair. And maybe guys won't hit on you. You know what I mean? Guys can be annoying sometimes. Am I right? You know what I mean? I'm just saying. You want a deterrent. That might happen. I feel like that might be disproportionate. When was this study taking place? Was it taking place in like fucking 1965 or something? Then I can understand, but I feel like that could happen. It's probably unlikely. It's more likely they'll just stay away from you than they'll attack you. But
happening to women who are perceived as lesbian. I've seen guys harass women who don't want anything to do with men. According to Foss, these responses reveal that queer women face particularly aggressive and direct homophobia when forced to reveal their sexual identity.
All I want to say, because I'm not saying that they don't face more issues. It's just like all these that we've seen, our examples are speculative. They're all like, I think this would happen. This might happen. I feel this would happen. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. I'm just saying, like, did they actually not shave, or are they just speculating on what would happen if they don't shave? They could be right. I'm just saying it's a little interesting that it's like it's self-reporting data. Sometimes I feel like they could be a little bit not the best, but I could be wrong. You know, could be wrong.
Via the body hair exercise. As managing body hair can symbolize the management of negative stigma affiliated with sexual minority status, women must not deviate because those who deviate face violence and harassment. Consequently, women internalize mandated conformity to heterosexual scripts in order to ward off negative male attention and avoid homophobic attack. The enforcement of gender here, again shadowing fears of trans identity, gender bending, and crossing lines of femininity, speaks to the networks of power that enforce both heterosexuality and femininity. Kelly must reassure others that she is still woman, as anything representing a middle ground becomes too threatening. It becomes clear to me with Foss's study that hairlessness and other feminine stereotypes are put in place for a reason that, yes, coincides with Wikipedia files, but also with a need to control women and keep them in their place within a heteronormative and male gaze-dominated society. People other than men also internalize and reinforce that same system. If women aren't shaving, then they're masculine because gender stereotypes just make so much sense. And if women are masculine in a heteronormative society, then they serve no purpose to the idea of heterosexuality, which poses a threat. Homophobia is also a bitch. If women aren't virgins, they serve no purpose to people who view sex as a conquest. If women aren't loving, nurturing, or innocent, then they're men, because gender stereotypes totally make sense and are not at all a twisted way to live life. And again, if they're men, they don't serve a purpose to heterosexuality and are perceived as threats to the natural order of things. But that's just my opinion. I want to end with this Billie Eilish quote that really encompasses my overall feelings of this topic. And not my responsibility, she wrote, "I feel you watching, always, and nothing I do goes unseen. So while I feel your stares, your disapproval, or your sigh of relief, if I lived by them, I'd never be able to move. Would you like me to be smaller, weaker, softer, taller? Would you like me to be quiet? Is my value based only on your perception? Or is your opinion of me not my responsibility?"
All right, interesting video. The only thing that was a little bizarre was the comment about the Western world. Not to be rude, only because objectively, there's more sexism and homophobia in non-Western countries, you know? I'm not saying Western countries are perfect. Just saying it comes off like weird. It comes off as like I don't know. It just comes off as, I don't know. It gives me like a weird taste. It's like when the whole argument when we're talking about like, oh, is there a pedophilia problem in Western countries? And it's like, well, if probably less so then. I'm just saying, if you have, like, when Western countries have higher ages of consent, you probably have less of a pedophilia problem. If anything, the constant conversation about it in Western countries is more from an advocacy perspective than anything else. I'm just saying. But outside that, interesting video. Always fun to watch intelligent content creators, even if I disagree with some stuff.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.